Bantam Doubleday Dell Audio Publishing presents In a Class by Itself by Sandra Brown. She was nervous. "You're being ridiculous," she muttered to herself. "Stop it." Unfortunately, knowing such nervousness was ridiculous didn't make it miraculously disappear. And when one began talking to oneself, things had come to a sad pass. Her clammy hands shook as she locked the car door behind her and tucked the eelskin purse under her arm. She ran one of those damp, trembling hands over her golden hair. It had been wound into a chic, tight chignon at the nape of her neck. If only her anxiety could be as easily controlled as her hair. Taking one last deep breath, she followed the sidewalk to the Elks Lodge. Music, popular a decade ago, was blaring from the building. She went through the door, which had been propped open to prevent a bottleneck. The bass percussion of the music hit her like a soft blow to the chest. Brilliant beams of light struck her eyes as the spotlighted mirrored ball rotated overhead. Laughter and noisy conversation rippled over her in palpable waves. Her senses were stimulated by the very vibrancy of the party, yet she stood uncertainly just inside the door. "Dani? Oh, my heavens, it's Dani Quinn!" The woman sitting behind the table that served as a registration desk jumped from her post and rounded the table with her arms spread wide. Dani was enclosed in a vigorous hug against breasts that were even more pillowy than they had been 10 years ago. At that time, those breasts had been the envy of every girl in the class, indeed in the school. The bearer of the enviable bosom pushed Dani back and gave her a long, thorough once-over. Disgust registered on her animated face. "I swear to God I hate you. You haven't gained 1 damn pound in 10 years. You're gorgeous, gorgeous." Dani laughed. "Hello, Spud. I mean Rebecca." "Hell, it's still Spud," the woman shouted on a raucous laugh. "You mean you still like French fries?" Spud patted hips that had finally caught up to the proportions of her chest, possibly even exceeded them. "Can't you tell?" The women laughed and hugged each other again. "You'll never change, Spud." "So good to see you." "And you. Though we see you in the Dallas papers all the time. I was hoping that up close I would be able to see signs of age or at least detect telltale scars." She inspected Dani's hairline closely. "No facelift, just naturally beautiful and ageless, damn it. Stay away from Jerry," she growled. "You and Jerry are still together." "Hell yes, who else would put up with me?" Jerry and Spud had gone together since their sophomore year in high school. Dani envied them their uncomplicated life together. Children? 4. Heathens all. But they're with the sitter tonight, and I've forgotten them for several blessed hours in which I plan to get downright tipsy. She turned back to the table. "Here's your name tag. Oh, not that anyone will have forgotten you. Most beautiful girl in the class." "Thank you." Spud yanked the back off the sticky side of the name tag and maternally attached it to Dani's raw silk sheath. "You put us Hicks to shame, Dani. Just look at this dress, Neiman Marcus. But then you always did make the rest of us look like we should go home and start over." "Should I have worn jeans?" Spud patted her arm. "Honey, class has nothing to do with clothes. You'd look just as good in a toe sack." She lowered her voice and leaned closer. "Have you seen him yet?" Dani wet her lips and averted her eyes. "Who?" "Aw, hell, Dani, you know who. Logan." There, it was over. Now she didn't have to dread it anymore. For weeks, ever since she had received the photocopied letter from Spud informing her of the 10-year class reunion, she had dreaded hearing his name spoken for the first time. Well, she had survived. Logan. No, I haven't seen him since, well, let's see. It's been 10 years. Is he coming? Our class president, varsity star, of course he's coming. He's into everything that goes on in Hardwick, a regular pillar of the community. He helped me notify everyone about the reunion. Dani's trembling hand found its way to the hammered gold medallion suspended around her neck from a strand of chunky malachite stones. "How is he?" She didn't think her air of indifference fooled Spud. "Do you mean how does he look?" Spud laughed lustily. "Let's put it this way. I've warned Jerry that there are 3 men in the world I'd risk 10 happy years of marriage for one night with. Robert Redford and Richard Gere are 2 of them. Oh. Unfortunately, Logan's always considered me his good buddy. Spud grasped Dani's arm and pushed her toward the throng. What am I holding you here for? Go, mix, mingle, get something to drink. A lot of people want to see you. We'll catch up on all the rest later. Shyly at first, then, as she recognized more of her former classmates with more enthusiasm, Dani got caught up in the party. She renewed acquaintances, met spouses, listened to capsuled versions of the last 10 years. Al, the class Romeo who had always been on the make and after 3 unsuccessful marriages and 6 children was still on the make, took Dani under his wing. Dani, baby, you thirsty? Name your poison. Coke, please. Sure, wait right here. While she waited, she glanced down at the ballot someone had shoved into her hand. Later in the evening, when everyone had had a chance to see everyone else, they were going to award white elephant prizes for the baldest, the most changed, the one who had fathered or mothered the most children, and other such categories. Who gets your vote? It had been 10 years, yet she knew his voice immediately. It was deeper, more mellow, but since he was 2 years older than the rest of the class, by the time they'd graduated, his voice had already matured to that low timbre. It was achingly familiar and straight out of her dreams. She raised her head and looked at him. Everything inside her stilled. He was more handsome, more magnetic than she remembered. With no more power than a leaf in a whirlpool, she was swept into that magic aura that surrounded him, that made him appealing to men and women alike. Straight off a Scandinavian travel poster, his face had borne the last 10 years well. Indeed, the lines faintly etched around his eyes and along either side of his mouth only added another dimension to his attractiveness. Wheat-colored hair, as tousled as ever and defying control, fell across a wide forehead. Thick eyebrows, only 1 shade darker than his hair, sheltered eyes as crystal blue as a Texas summer sky. His slender nose flared slightly over a mouth that testified to both sensitivity and strength. The vertical cleft in his chin was deeper than she remembered, but the jaw was just as square and just as determined. So, he said, who gets your vote? A steamy fog seemed to invade her peripheral vision so that everything around her faded and blurred. Only Logan's image was startlingly clear. My vote? For which category? Most surprised to see you here. He wasn't smiling. His eyes were busy exploring every feature of her face. You didn't think I'd come? I didn't think you'd have the guts. Now he smiled, and the lazy grin was a taunting slap in the face after what he had said. Dani was affronted and hurt. Before she could reply, Al was pushing a glass of cola into her hand with such an abundance of exuberance that it sloshed over. Oops, sorry, Dani. Hiya, Logan. A napkin? Dani asked, waving the dripping cola off her hand. Napkin? Al repeated stupidly. No. Logan somehow managed to wriggle his hand into the pocket of his jeans and pull out a snowy handkerchief. Unfolding it, he ceremoniously handed it to Dani. Thank you, she said stiffly, wishing she had the courage to fling it in his face. After she had blotted her hand, she handed it back to him. You're welcome. His eyes stayed on her as he asked, Which wife did you bring tonight, Al? Very funny, Logan. Dismally, Al sipped his scotch. His flushed face indicated it wasn't his first. God, man, they're bleeding me dry. I'm paying alimony and child support out the nose. Logan's sympathy was transparently insincere. That's what you get for trying to populate East Texas. Yeah, well, you had the right idea. Love 'em and leave 'em. Oh, damn. I'm sorry, Dani. She wished at that moment she were anywhere on earth but here. Why had she come? It was going to be worse than she thought. Honey, I'm parched. A redhead sidled up to Logan and wrapped a sinuous arm around his waist. Dani was instantly offended. The woman had a mass of red curls that surrounded her petulant face and cascaded over her shoulders. Her white satin jumpsuit was out of place for this kind of party. Its halter top barely contained her voluptuous breasts. She exuded sexual invitations with as much subtlety as a whistle blast from a rolling freight train. Dani wondered how Al's optic muscles were keeping.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?